There's enormous numbers of stuff that relate to the way we do it. If you follow the librarians who work in the gaming industry, it's fascinating as they do it. Especially the ones who are into avatars and into old literature. Like the children's collection at Toronto Public Library, which is one of the largest in the world, does really good business with video gamers because they're looking for Old Norse stories, Old Norse myths, that sort of stuff as gaming strategies. I work with David Snowden at Quebec. Can we change the national culture? So for the last 15 years, another 5 to go, he's been hired to change the national culture of Singapore. Because Singapore is trying to break out of the Pacific Rim incremental innovation mentality so that they can do original innovation. Most innovation comes from multi-ethnic, multilingual, multi-dimensional societies. So Canada, the US, India, Australia. If you measure it by dissertations and patents and all that sort of stuff, things that we influence. And so Singapore has the best chance in that Pacific Rim because they're slightly more diverse than most of the countries there. And they're small enough for the size of Toronto. So he's teaching kids. And if you know anything about most of the Asian countries, you don't get to be innovative until you're in your 60s. You sort of have to do the party line until you're in your 50s, and you get to start to make some of the new stuff, and then you get to do something new. Well, they want to get people starting younger. So he teaches them stories of innovation, and they tell it. So he's been doing every single kid in grade 6, for the last 15 years, teaching them how to tell stories about innovation, to lock it down, so that they have permission to change the way they work. Really interesting. He's building it on a process called Kinetic, because David predicted 9/11, put the US on high alert for June, July, and August of 2001. And then Mr. Bush pulled the high alert off on Labor Day weekend because the planes were going too slow to get the kids back to university. So David was the only person flown back into Washington, the only plane in the air. They sent Air Force 2 for him to take him to Washington. He picked up Cheney and the Joint Chiefs of Staff and brought them to Canada where they were safe, to Kananaskis. You know, when we built the Kananaskis Olympic facility, there's a 7-story superstructure underneath. That's why Olympic facilities are so expensive. And it's built between those 2 high mountains, so the spy satellites can only hear in on 2 minutes. That's why they had the G8 summit there. And so he's teaching them how to deal with asynchronous, asymmetrical threats. So I hired David to understand what was happening in public libraries. What is the asynchronous, asymmetrical threat that's happening to us? And I'm going too long. And so we worked with him, and we figured out that by collecting 15,000 stories in 5 large clients, consortia in the northeastern US and Canada. And we found out that why people use libraries is for community and learning, not for books. Surprise. Books are way down there. Community and learning. That's the psychographic profile. And we got those patterns. I can do a lot with that. This is just a quick thing where we were able to lower the death rate using library strategies in Iraq and Afghanistan. My friend James King at the Navy does research on IEDs, but what they really found out was all these millennials doing blogging and Facebook and MySpace and Flickr, when they banned it, all the death rate went through the roof in that war zone. So we went in and interviewed them, David and a few other people, and found out, well, they told us we can't use texting anymore, we can't use our cell phones, we're not allowed to blog, we're not allowed to do YouTube videos. But what I used to do in the war zone was say, snipers behind you, and text my friend on his phone. And so if I can't tell him that, he got shot. And so they let him text again. And the death rate went right down again. Remember they said, oh, it's Petraeus' surge? It's almost totally based on using Web 2.0 technologies to change how the war went. Library thing in Ontario, Bibliocommons in Ontario, how to comment on OPACs and work with that. Now I want to talk about the SLA alignment project. And how do we talk about it? What do we do that's so amazing? So we work with Fleischman Hiller and Andy Hines, who's a technology futurist. So we're actually planting ourselves 5 years out and outsell, so we can have outsell who are, like me, a recovering librarian. I entered the 12-step program. Yes, I got wonderful skills, but there's some stuff that needs to be fixed. And work with them. So we surveyed thousands of C-level executives. CEO, HR, IT, R&D, marketing, strategy, and then info pros in all sectors. We asked them, what did they feel and think? I had Steve McGarvey, who's a Toronto-based neuro-linguistic programming expert, come in and teach people how to speak properly, how to talk about ourselves. So if I tell you, if you like your kid and say, don't spill your milk, what are they going to do? Spill it. Proven over and over and over again. If you spank your child, they become violent and their behavior worsens. It does not. Every single piece of research shows that. If you tell your kid, don't spill your milk, they will do that. So when we tell people saying, don't think about librarians this way, what do they do?
Think about it.
So what do we need to change? So we've hired Steve to come in and help us do the proper communication. So we brought John Cotton-David back from the dead and had him come in and introduce this research, and we released the results. Because the point was, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and Ensign Ricky are beaming down to the planet. Guess who's not coming back? Now in the Google Society, what's the worst thing? Like, you know if you're wearing a red shirt, you're going to die. This is how that works. So when we sit there and say, like, is it important that we call ourselves special librarians? Or does that make us Ensign Ricky? We need to absolutely be able to ask that question and to prove that it's, you know, we've got all these people freaking out because we're taking L word out of some library school stuff. You know what? The L word doesn't particularly work for us, so I'm going to show you why. So the elements of identity are, what's our promise when we go in and work with somebody? What are our values? What's the value of our work? And then how do we ethically do it? Then what's our voice? Now this is the opposite of the way I usually see it, right? How do I say this big stuff? Here's my promise. Our problem is we're upending it the wrong way. We need to get our voice stronger. We need to talk about it better. So here's the stuff we were talking to. C-level executives. This is the ones we got on individual groups. Well, that's the CEO, the IT, head of IT, the HR, the top people in Toronto and Virginia and DC. And we had them come in and look at a bunch of stuff. And we used a group of the main research, 20,000 of them, you know, fairly, we could only afford English. So we had to use English countries, but that was not too bad. And then we had to make sure we covered most of the sectors where librarians practice. Not too many manufacturing, because manufacturing is not where we work. We don't add a lot of the value there, because that's where but we do add a lot of value in the knowledge-based industries. We want to know what happens, what are information roles, our information habits, what do people do, why do they care about using us, what are the perceptions of value, and what's the perceptions of our role. So, what habits are they doing? This is the top information categories: company information, market research reports and services, education and training. All of them in pretty good work, but that's the kind of stuff they were looking for. So we said, well, we're going to tell a story. Should we be telling stories about this stuff to actually engage them? What is it? And we've got this broken down by where they're doing it. But this is what really interested me. Perceptions of value, the most valuable information roles, the users versus providers. People who use us and decide our budgets, decide if we're going to be hired, decide if we're going to be kept during a recession, and us. So here's, conducting research on the user's behalf. How many of you think that's important? Well, apparently, most of us say that's a really important thing, because that's us, the provider. This is what they value now. Is that a disconnect or what? Making information available to the desktop. Not too bad, but still over. But look at these. Down here. Managing a physical library and print collection. They just don't freaking care. So why should we put that? Is it our lead foot? No. Yes, we probably need one to actually be able to do our work. But when you look at what they actually care about, managing internal content, analyzing research on the end user's behalf, working on the project team as a researcher embedded, managing a portal or an intranet, integrating content into work processes, consultation on organizing information and providing customized information products. They're willing to see us talking at a higher level than most of us are willing to communicate. They're ready for the message we need to be communicating to them. So we need to get our confidence up. Now all these slides are up online on the SLA website. But we look at this kind of stuff. What do they say is important about what we do? The overall relevancy of the information. Apparently they think we do a good job on that. The timeliness of the information is important. This is where they say we're somewhat weaker. Ease of use and access, provision of the most current information. But look at 66% and up. You know, there's some packaging components down here. But there's a huge number of value propositions that we can use when we're communicating stuff. Then, perceptions of value. Helps information makes me make strategic decisions. It's always critical, high-risk decisions. The stuff where do I use it?